Yesterday, the board of directors proposed deletion of 153 longstanding rules from the handbook, which would pave the way for direct pay to players. Also affects maybe the way collectives will work, but it all is contingent on the approval of the House settlement. We've talked about the House settlement a lot on the show. We've had Brad Heinrichs on from the Swarm, so we thought today we'd bring in Brent Blum from the We Will Collective. Oh, I like that hat. What is that hat?
It's a Rocco Becht hat. Supporting my buddies, my guys.
Like dude, Rocco. that is a sweet hat.
TheRoccoBecht.com if you want one yourself.
Look at you just shilling your stuff for your clients. Are they? Do you view them as clients, by the way?
I don't know what they are, but I'm glad Rocco's a Cyclone. I'll just put it that way.
Okay. What a great answer. I look at him as a Cyclone.
Yeah. Okay, you brought that up. You're glad he's a Cyclone. Just last week, we were talking about the rumors that were out there about Rocco Becht maybe going to Tennessee. Was there any truth to that? I said there's no way. I just said, you look what you guys have done and what they've built. I know there's a price for everybody, but was there truth? Were there smoke, there's fire?
I mean, there was interest by Tennessee for sure, but it wasn't reciprocated. I'll just put it that way. I mean, that's obviously when the Nico situation happens at Tennessee, we're all wise. Like, hey, we know what Tennessee's going to do. They're going to go and look somewhere else. And obviously, Rocco was a priority for a lot of schools this offseason. He didn't even waver, but that's, they clearly they targeted a couple Big 12 schools. So it was Iowa State, it was TCU, the quarterback at TCU, and thankfully for the Big 12, both of them said no thanks. But yeah, I mean, obviously we knew that was a possibility, but never a doubt with Rocco. I mean, he's one of one, and in this whole era, there's a lot of crazy stuff, but getting to know people like him and his family makes the stressful times pretty worthwhile because he's a really good dude and does it the right way.
I have said over and over, I believe that those connections and like being able to what Nico's a great example for a guy like you, Bloom, to be able to talk to these kids and show to these families. He had a connection. He was building this relationship with a community of people, an entire network that we were just talking about earlier, Trav, and he walked away from that. And I look at George Niang. I've said it for a long time. What George did to connect with the Cyclone faithful is magical. And it's hard to duplicate or replicate or any of that stuff. And you got to kind of have a magical personality too, but it's possible. And a kid like Rocco is building something like that. And you can jeopardize it all. You can throw it all away for a money opportunity.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think what I would say its best situation in this entire era is the success of, honestly, a player like a Will McDonald who turned down a bunch of money when this first started to stay at Iowa State. And then TJ Tampa did the exact same thing. And then last offseason, it was Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins. And both of those guys will be early round draft picks. And so they are proving that, still at the end of the day, the real money is in the NFL. And tarnishing your legacy in college to chase it's a big paycheck. Let's not lie here. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars in some cases, but the upside of staying, not only from the NFL perspective, but then also your legacy as it relates to being a legend now at Iowa State, far outlasts that. And I think the Iowa State coaching staff has done an incredible job of keeping continuity by saying, hey, the grass isn't always greener. And I think in some cases we've seen that with our men's basketball program and women's basketball program as well.
When a player wants more money, I mean, Nico's going to be the one. Do they come to you or do they go to the coach? They go, Coach, I need more money. Do they come to you and say,
that's a good question.
More money?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be us, but honestly, now with the revenue sharing era, everything kind of
back in the old days.
Wow. Yeah, but no, it's really the coaches are kind of the coaches and GMs at this point. Okay. So a lot of the agents, a lot of the handlers, the parents, the cousins, a lot of that's going directly through the coaching staffs now, and ultimately, I know, like we like to give us in the collective, we're like, oh, we're doing all this stuff. We're there to raise money. I mean, let's be honest. I'm not.
Bloom, you've always been. Yeah. I've always said you've always been so honest about this. You've seen the writing on the wall for years. You've said this is what this is probably going to look like. This is what this is going to have to look like. This is the language we should be using. So I appreciate your honesty
Yeah,
with this.
I mean, again, I would love to take credit. I mean, ultimately, it's fundraising. So, and we could use more of it, by the way, because it's not done yet. But at the same time, I'm not deciding who Iowa State's targeting in the portal. Don't get me wrong.
So, we brought this up yesterday. I think it was a good thing. Somebody had to be the first to do it. I do think it was good that Josh Heupel said, "Hey, enough's enough. We're not going to pay you," because I think it starts, and I think it happened at Syracuse the other day with a wide receiver as well. Coach going, "Yeah, you know what? Thanks for your services. We're just not going to pay it." I think that's a next step in all this chaos that we see. This coach is saying, "We're just not going to bend to your demands."
Yeah, and this is the perfect storm right now because this is all coming to a head all at the exact same time. So obviously, you guys talked about the House settlement. Everyone was kind of unloading dollars here in early April and really caused this bubble to go nuts, specifically in college basketball. So that was a big part of it. But then the basketball portal and the football portal being all open at the same time, while these collectives are trying to unload their dollars because we're getting close to revenue sharing, it created this perfect storm of the market got insane. And you had literally guys, you had backup guards from BYU making $2 million to go to Virginia. You can look up who that might be. But that's where it just got insane. And literally a lot of schools got priced out. I mean, that's the other part of this whole thing is people ran out of money. And so it's like you can be we're finally holding the line. A lot of times everyone ran out of money real quick.
That's what it was.
So because you're
wasn't I don't want to pay, it was I can't pay.
It was a little bit of both. I mean, eventually it's like we got to a point too at Iowa State. It's like, I mean, we got to make a choice here. I mean, the great example somebody made to me yesterday was think of it as if the Vikings and the Timberwolves had the exact same salary cap. And how would you handle that if you're those programs? And I think with both the basketball portal and the football portal being open at the same time, you've got a lot more than just one program trying to figure out its funding. You're trying to fund two different programs with two different egos, with two different mentalities, all with a bunch of stuff you can't control either. So it has created this really hectic space, and I think people just got priced out, both emotionally but also dollar-wise as well.
Yeah, because on top of that, all of those prices were skyrocketing. We're talking about millions of dollars compounding on top of each other.
Yeah, I mean, even at Iowa State, we thought we were in good shape, and we found out really quickly over about a 4-day period we were not. And it changed. And it changed everything in the plans for both of our programs, honestly. And now it's just a matter of, I know a lot of Iowa State fans are like, what are you guys doing in the portal? It's like, well, the best portal work we did on the basketball side and on the football side was keeping all those players at Iowa State. And then I think that's the number one focus. It always has been for us.
Yeah.
But it changed. It shifted for us. I'm going to be honest with you guys. In like a 4-day period, it went from, okay, we feel really good to, oh, no, this is hard. This is really hard work.
Do you think what the NCAA did yesterday, and that was the elimination of 153 old rules, is essentially trying to end collectives, meaning bringing everything in-house, and now and then you had the clearinghouse for NIL, which we've had Brad Heinrichs on. He's not a fan of it because, and I fall in the same thing. Who determines what worth is? If somebody wants to pay me $1 million to do something, they're determining my worth. I don't like the fact that Deloitte can go, well, that's overvalued. I mean, to me, that's handcuffing.
Yeah, and I from a free market standpoint, I totally agree. But also, if we don't have rules in place, we're in the exact same situation that we are in right now. And so at some point, there's got to be some sort of guideline here. I understand the whole, and I don't even know how they would judge it. The free market value is an impossible task. But at the same time, we cannot have a car dealership in Norman, Oklahoma giving a guy $2 million and calling it legit NIL. I understand, if we don't put in guardrails, we're in the same position we have been for the last 3 years. So it's like we can't have it both ways. There has to be some sort of standard here to keep some level of competitiveness. And honestly, I get it. If I'm a Big Ten or the SEC school, I'm saying, hey, we don't want any guardrails here because they have all the advantages in the world. I remind our fellow in-state folks, the University of Iowa is making $35 million more per year than Iowa State is just based on TV revenue. $35 million. When you're talking about an expenditure now of $21 million that all these schools are trying to find, that is a massive, massive advantage. And so it's for the Big 12 and the ACC. I mean, yeah, I'm a free market guy, but at the same time, if you want to make it a SEC and Big 10 invitational, just keep the rules as they are because that's the way it's going.
Well, it's funny you said that because did you hear what Matt Rule said the other day? Matt
Absolutely.
Rule was asked about this, and he goes, I don't care about the Big 12. I don't care about any other. He goes, the only conferences I care about are the SEC and the Big 10 because that's where it's at. I mean, he's not wrong, right? I mean, what you just laid out.
Okay. I thought he was dismissive about the level of competition, and that was
it was both. It was both.
It was both, but he's not. But what Brent just
the
said,
money side of it, he's right about.
And that I think, and what he's saying is the money side is going to create the competitive side of it. Not saying that I agree with him. I'm just saying I think that's where he was coming from.
Yeah, I've had a love-hate relationship with Matt Rule over the years, but I understood where he's coming from there. But that's where the Iowa State staff took that as an insult of, well, wait a second, what have you done to prove that you're even in the Ohio State Penn State conversation, which is very little. Yeah. And yet you're just going to dismiss us just because we're in a conference, and yet if we would play on the field, I think Iowa State would be favored this year. I mean, just being honest, it'd be probably a pick.
I don't disagree with you.
But that's where it's really difficult we're trying to make this sport last while a lot of folks are just making decisions that's in the best interest of themselves. And, I mean, I think these new rules could work, but right now honestly, guys, college sports has put themselves at the mercy of the court system and Congress. Have fun with that.
True too. Yeah.
You tell me if I'm wrong here. I was thinking about this morning and thinking, how come it works in the NFL? How come it works in the NBA? How come it works? Yeah. And then it hit me. I go, because college sports is just too big. I mean, with the NFL, you only have 32 teams. Yeah, I mean, you have a limited number of teams. You look at college sports and you've got hundreds of teams. I go, oh. It's just too big. There's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all.
Think of it. In each of those sports, the commissioner is basically the representative of the owners. And those individual owners have contact with that commissioner to say, here's the things that would help my institution the best. You're talking about 360 some Division I. And then the NCAA has Division II and Division III. It's so many institutions that it's just out of hand.
The only way that this will work long term, and we're going to put band-aids on this until then, is if there's essentially a workforce that is it cannot be included with the NCAA. I mean, all of these conferences now have to create their own mini NFLs and mini NBAs. That's the long term. Now, whether that takes 5 years to get there or 10 years. That's the only way it's going to go to get around the employee standards. Otherwise, we're going to have things like this house settlement. That'll work for a little bit. I really think they will. They'll slow it down a little bit, but ultimately, until these college athletes are employees and there's an antitrust exemption from Congress, just like the NFL and the NBA have, we're just kind of putting Band-Aids on things until something gets fixed. And I think there's a lot of people with good intentions here, but all it takes is one of those commissioners looking for themselves and their constituents to hurt the good of the sport. And there's not one person saying, hey, what are we doing here? Because everybody's looking out for the bottom line at the end of the day.
How long until your office is at Iowa State and you're an Iowa State employee? I mean, is that where we see collectives going?
Yeah, so two things, and I don't know for sure yet, Travis. I may be employed July 1. I may not be. I mean, that's kind of the...
it's that much up in the air with you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel good about I'll land somewhere. Just
you've done a good job with all those connections and networking and all that. But
you met some really cool people in this whole ordeal too. Like that's the fun part. But I don't know yet. And I think everyone's trying to figure this out. My guess is, and we're gonna be a little bit different, but those schools that will max out revenue sharing wise, I'll just say the Big Ten, the SEC for sure. Their collectives likely could still exist. The next arms race here is going to be those collectives that exist as ad agencies, essentially, where their job is not going to be to fundraise, pay for play. Their job is going to be to find and source local deals for their athletes that are fair market value, because that is going to be allowed over and above the cap. And so I think collectives will still exist, but they're not going to be collectives. They're going to turn into de facto supporting ad agencies for the programs. So some collectives will go away. Ours, we're very much up in the air. But what a lot of schools are still trying to maintain here is flexibility, because we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. We think it's going to look like this July 1, but if the whole thing blows up, you still need a collective to be, that buoy for the program should this not work out. And so I'm literally day to day with understanding where I'm going to be, where the collective is going to be. But I would say there's a good chance that I will end up in the Iowa State ecosystem in some capacity, whether through the university, through the third party, which is Cyclone Sports Properties in Learfield.
If Brad Heinrichs calls you and offers you a job with the, I'm coming.
Yeah. Can I bring Ames Lager with me? I mean, no.
Well, we do know one thing. Brad's not going to go work for the University of Iowa. He makes way too much money as an actuary. I mean, I don't know if you've ever met Brad. He's a great dude, and I know.
Did you get a chance to meet him, Bloom? I tried to get you guys.
We've had some very nice text exchanges.
Okay,
for sure.
all right. Like, that's one of those things, Travis. I tried to make those connections a long time ago to put those two together.
I have great respect for Brad, and I know sometimes social media wants to turn us into whatever. I mean, that's just a guy trying to do his best for Iowa. I'm trying to do the same for Iowa State, and I have great respect for the challenge he took on, because it's not as glamorous as it looks. On the Travis and Ross show here on a Tuesday morning.
So you bring up an ad agency. I'm just throwing this out there. Would athletes be forced to use said ad agency, or could they go to like Choice Creative and go, "Hey, Choice Creative, you're going to be my ad agency"? I mean, is that free market too?
Yeah, it is. So essentially, just you guys can nerd out with me for a little bit. So the schools
we got time.
The schools will own the NIL rights for its players. This is what the contracts are saying now. So now, just for example, Iowa and Iowa State, they have Learfield as their corporate sponsorship team. You guys know who Learfield is.
Yes, we're aware.
Yeah. So Learfield owns all the inventory for radio assets, third-tier TV assets, but then most importantly, signage throughout Kinnick, Hilton, Jack Trice Stadium. So essentially now, these schools will sign their athletes to NIL rights that Learfield can go out and sell now. And that's how the athlete's going to make money for the school potentially. So now at Iowa State, for example, I go to Pioneer and say, "Hey, Pioneer, you're spending X amount to be on the Hilton Coliseum floor. Well, for an extra $50,000, you can now get Taman Lipsy in some of your marketing materials." And so that's going to be the room to grow for these athletic departments, is leveraging those existing relationships through NIL with their corporate partners. That said, the individual athletes will be able to have their own NIL on top of that, as long as it's fair market value. Okay. So absolutely, if I'm an athlete and I'm building a brand, I'm calling my friends at Choice Creative and saying, "Hey, start looking out for me." The one caveat being, if you're outside of the school, you cannot use the logo. You cannot use the mark.
Oh, so it's going to be the old Post baseball cards we used to get, where Don Mattingly would just have a blue hat on.
Yes.
Okay.
That's pretty common even today, though, right?
It is. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, so I mean, but if they were to sign the Learfield one, they would be able to use the Iowa State logo.
Exactly.
Because Learfield has that relationship.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's how the world goes. But everyone's trying to get more creative here. Like, all right, we just have a $21 million expenditure. How do you figure that out? And so, I mean, all these schools have been working for literally a year, understanding that this was coming, to put in the best parameters to stay competitive. While also, though, by the way, the collectives are still around. And so I think most of them will morph into these ad agencies, but all it could take is a Supreme Court case tomorrow or whatever and say, "Oh, nope, those have to exist still." And then you're back to square one. And so flexibility is everything.
Are we going? Go ahead, Trav. Sorry.
Of the 21 million, do you know the percentage at Iowa State that will go to football and will go to basketball and go to women? I mean, so how is that going to break down?
Yeah, I don't know the exact answer. I think Iowa State's working on a rollout plan to kind of explain all this in the coming weeks, and I've been kind of told to, wait for the grand enterprise to share that before I do. But there is a plan in place. But that's been, honestly, guys, that's been the most difficult part in college athletics in the last 6 months, was how do you keep your football coach and your basketball coaches happy at the same time when they're dealing with the same amount of funding, essentially? Like, how do you choose? It's like, picking, I've got a 7 and a 5-year-old at home. Hey, who do I get to spend time with today? And then the other one feels hurt when you don't spend time with them. Everybody's dealing with this right now. And you saw a lot of movement in the coaching off season in basketball for like the Kevin Willard at Maryland said, I'm not getting any support. I'm going to Villanova where they only have basketball. Or even a Buzz Williams at A&M says, well, I'm not getting any support. This is a football school. I'm going to go over to Maryland. So it's like all of these things have been happening in the background, and the political push and pull behind the scenes has been fascinating for everybody in college sports.
Dude from Iowa says, how do you transfer money from arena and merchandise sales to NIL? I guess, what does he mean by that?
It's like jersey sales.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it just depends on the agreement. I mean, like we have a shop, shopwewill.com if anybody's curious. We have the official Iowa State marks. We essentially sell that merchandise, and 50% of the amount just goes straight to our fund that we then distribute based on the coach's intentions. The players itself, so a lot of them have their individual shirts. They have agreements with these stores that are third parties. They basically get 20-25% of whatever comes out of there, and they get paid every month. So it just depends on the agreement. If it's through the collective, it goes to the collective whole, and then we distribute it out. If it goes to the individual player, they get all that.
Okay.
Man, how much have you learned over the last 3 years?
Oh my gosh.
More than I wanted to know. When you start talking about distributed beer, pizza, and among other things. Yeah, it's been a ride. Like every day is something else, and there's times where I'm like, can I just go fundraise for scholarships
now,
again? But yeah.
I think I know the answer to this question, but Travis asked Brad Heinrichs this question. If you could go back, would you do it again? Are you glad you did this?
Man, that's a really good question. The highs make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you honestly, I'll just be honest. The last 2 weeks have been just really, really stressful for everybody because you've got the weight of fan bases, coaches, administrators, not to mention all the changes and the family dynamics as well with not knowing
Damn
what
it, this isn't what you
through.
signed up for, man.
I know. So I didn't sign up for the last 2 weeks. I'll put it that way. But when you get to know, so back to Rocco, when you get to know Rocco and his family, or, Jalen, Noel, and Jaden Higgins were two of my favorite guys, and seeing them get drafted this weekend, was texting with them. And again, I don't text with the players a lot, but just wishing them good luck. And, both of them to a person said unprompted,
You're the bag man. You should be talking to him a lot.
Yeah. Well, so they said, hey, we appreciate you. We know once we get drafted, we're going to come back and help out. And so those are the types of things that, you get to meet some really cool people in this era. It's just the stress from some of the non-controllables make it very difficult.
Man, why do people have to be people?
I understand it's part of it. And my wife helps me with some of this stuff, and sometimes people have gone after her on social media. It's like really unnecessary a lot of times, but I get it. We're kind of public facing figures now.
Oh, you're public facing.
Yeah,
but
you are. But it's not saying it's right. It's just,
I know.
That's what happens.
It's just what happens, though. So I mean, I'm happy for the players that we get to work with and their families, because some really transformational stuff that they've gone through with this era, and that doesn't get talked about enough. Where we have a young guy that's going to get drafted, Malik Verdone, first in his family to open up a Roth IRA, thanks to
wow.
So like, there's some really neat stuff that you hear about the Nikos, you hear about the huge money, but then there's some really other stuff that even the not primetime players are getting that's really transforming their families too.
So you mentioned the last 2 weeks have been stressful, and you brought up coaches. Is Iowa State worried about the long-term competitiveness of this situation?
Yeah, I would say worried is an interesting term. I think it's going to get to a point at Iowa State, if it continues the same way, where Iowa State's going to need some sort of revenue funding from outside the donor base. This is not sustainable right now, the situation Iowa State's in, meaning it's going to get to a point where, Iowa State already took a hit, and this, I don't think this has been talked about enough locally. Iowa State took a $10 million hit last year because it took on the new Corner 4 schools in the Big 12 and didn't get a TV increase. And then I'm not blaming them. I understand why they did it, but the Big 10, the SEC, took a huge chunk, a bigger chunk than expected from the playoff last year. It was basically $8 million Iowa State was counting on that it didn't get. So you're talking about an Iowa State program that not only has a $21 million expenditure that it didn't come out of nowhere, but it's still hard to find, plus the 15 or so million that you're spending that you weren't planning on based on decisions not made by you, thanks to the Corner 4 schools and the playoff not working out as intended. So Iowa State's going to have a revenue problem. And there is some savings from what I understand, but that savings will run out. And then I think it'll be interesting to see how supportive our state wants to be to have a powerful program like Iowa State still around. Because without some support from the state or some other entity, it's going to be really hard for Iowa State to continue to compete in this era.
And what Brent's talking about, and tell me if I'm wrong, but part of this new legislation is to basically put everybody who's on a varsity sport on scholarship. Okay, so that's going to double the amount of women on scholarship. So that kind of settles the Title IX. Here's where I think you can solve that. Now, doesn't now like the university turn around and write a check to the university for that money, right?
Yeah, athletics pays for everything. University's not getting.
That's what's so stupid to me. It's just, and just hear me out, because I always got mad at when Omaha dropped football. I got mad at this because they're like, well, it cost us 36 scholarships. They were division. I go, that's just an Excel spreadsheet number. Okay, you had 36, but you had 100 other people paying full tuition. Football, I mean, so it always showed a loss. To me, with these scholarships, athletes bring people. When football and basketball are successful, more people apply to the university. When a successful athletic department is really good, like my daughter works at the University of Mississippi. When they get deep, she called me the day after they made the Sweet 16. She goes, Dad, our applications went up like 50% above normal.
Yep.
So to me, this sounds bad. I don't think the athletic department should have to pay for its athletes to be at school. I go, you can get rid of that expense real quick.
Yeah, I mean, and this is going to be the public fight Iowa State's going to have to get at in the next 6 to 9 months. Is they're going to need more support from the university itself. I'll just give you some numbers, guys. Rutgers is funding its athletic program to a tune of $90 million per year right now. $90 million. Rutgers. Arizona State is funding its program. By the way, in the Big 12, okay, at $60 million per year. The athletic department there at Arizona State had a $250 million debt. The university just said, "Yep, you're good. It's taken care of now." You've got a lot of programs. Cincinnati's given $50 million a year to its athletic program from its university. However, there is a law in the state of Iowa that the universities cannot fund the athletic programs. It is a law. To change that, the law needs to change. And the other part that a lot of people don't realize is our state institutions, Iowa State, Iowa, and UNI, are governed by the Board of Regents, not individual boards. If Iowa State were to move money around, it has to go through the Board of Regents, and not always do those same group of people have just Iowa State's best interests in mind. They have the state's interests in mind. Not to mention, obviously, I'm not naive to the current political climate. Like, trying to find money to support college athletics in this era could be really difficult. So it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. But I would just, you're dead on, Travis. I'm a big believer. I worked in higher education for 10 years before getting into this. Having a successful athletics program is 5x the benefit to the cost, in my opinion, from a marketing standpoint, from a fundraising standpoint, from an economic development standpoint. Some quick numbers, because you guys got me on a heater now.
We tend to do that to people.
I love it.
Thank you. Story County tourism dollars last year was $290 million in Story County, Iowa. During the COVID year, it was $105 million. And I understand it's not all Iowa State athletics there, right? But
what else is there to do in Story County?
There's a High Trestle Trail.
Yeah. And I know there's conventions. Like there are other things at Iowa State.
Right.
But there's a reason that hotel rooms are $400 a night during football season up in Ames. Like, at some point, the area is going to have to support Iowa State beyond just donors and fans buying tickets. And that's not a threat towards the state or the university or anything, but that's just the reality of, if Iowa State wants to remain competitive, and it has had the most successful decade of its time, it's going to take some investment from just beyond the donors that we're hitting up through We Will and Iowa State right now. And nobody loves the situation, but that's kind of the area that Iowa State's going to be boxed into here. And honestly, Iowa could benefit too, even with as simple as taxing sports betting at a higher rate could generate $50-75 million. And I would argue sports betting directly correlates to some of the social media stuff the athletes are getting, but also what do people bet on most here in the state? I mean,
College football, and college
exactly.
basketball.
So it's like there are ways I think that people could understand that would benefit the state as a whole. But having Iowa State drop down to a different non-Power 4 level, I think the damage would be extraordinary, way beyond the investment it may take to keep Iowa State at least afloat here in this interim period.
Man. This
Hey,
good
not to
stuff.
be too heavy, but this is what
No,
we're talking
no, dude,
about now,
Bloom.
yeah.
Hey, thanks a
But
lot.
I don't
for
think a
coming
lot
on.
of people know this. I don't think a lot of people know. You don't. I mean,
I didn't understand the weight of this, Travis.
Yeah.
I needed to see a friend walk me through it in that way to
and
say,
there's
hey,
a difference.
there's some heavy stuff coming
And
down
there's
the
a
road
reason
here.
Brad Heinrich doesn't talk about this, because I was really not in this situation. It got $35 million more.
Exactly what Brent's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
and again, I get it. I mean, I understand where everyone's trying to win here, and it's a competitive game, and
Yeah.
clearly you want it. But man, I think hopefully for the good of our state, and that's why thank you guys for the time. This is going to be a bigger conversation than just the NIL dollars for Iowa State. It's going to take a heavy lift for Iowa State to remain competitive, and I think you'll start hearing that message in the next couple of months.
Excellent stuff. Brent Blum,
thanks, man.
Collective. Thanks so much for your time, man. I appreciate it. And welcome back anytime. Maybe when you land the new job at Iowa State on July 1st, we'll bring you back on. Do we got to go through the proper channels at that point? Do we got to go through sports information and all that stuff?
Well, I mean, is Willis Automotive hiring? I mean, July 1 if they need somebody.
I've got some connections. We've made some, like you said, meet some cool people.
Here you go. Holler anytime, guys. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Bloom.
Brent. Appreciate it.
Hey,
Brent
keep
Blum.
kicking butt, buddy. Man,
Did you learn something there?
I learned a lot there, and most of it I wish I didn't know. I really wish. I'm glad it's one of those things I wish I hadn't asked, but I'm glad I did ask that question that you asked Brad Heinrichs,